to fight for the middle class. So thank you all for coming out today. Thank you for believing in these times, because look, I get it. You get up in the morning and you doom scroll through things, and although I will say this, the last few days you woke up thinking there might be news. Just saying. There will be news sometime, just so you know, there will be news. But the biggest thing we can do is, and our kids demanded of it, let's stand up for the democracy. Let's stand up for we know what's right. Let's stand up for our neighbors. Let's stand up and don't let them take our kindness as weakness.
How did you find out over the weekend that you were dead? You see that?
No.
People didn't see it for a couple days. 1.3 million user engagements as of Saturday morning about your demise.
Really? I didn't see that. You know, I have heard it's sort of crazy, but last week I did numerous news conferences, all successful. They went very well, like this is going very well. And then I didn't do any for 2 days, and they said there must be something wrong with him. Biden wouldn't do them for months. You wouldn't see him. And nobody ever said there was ever anything wrong with him, and we know he wasn't in the greatest of shape. No, I heard that. I get reports. Now, you knew I did an interview that lasted for about an hour and a half with somebody, and everybody saw that was on one of your competitors. I did numerous shows, and
oh my God, sometimes he is the best. Sometimes he is perfect. Good morning, Pineapples. Looking very good and very nice. Welcome to the Wake Up America Show. I'm your host, Austin Petersen. They call me AP. And I'm for liberty. Welcome, welcome. File on. Gather round, for I have news. It's the Wake Up America show. Some of you, if you don't know the media, you may not know the tells, but when he said one of your competitors there, he wasn't just, using a turn of phrase lightly. He refused to name his competitors because he understands the media. He'll call out Fox News by name, but he won't say the names of the other news organizations. And that's smart. And that's great marketing. But Trump's not dead. He's very much alive. He's here. He's queer. He's coming for your children. Just kidding. Be careful. Everybody gets... Yeah, all right, calm down, Mr. President. Everybody gets skewered on the Wake Up America show, okay? Everybody gets... the nuke. What is that abomination, Austin? Just came in today from the gift shop. Fat man in a little coat. Fat man in a little coat. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. Eric Wilson Live says Mike Walls sounds like, or I think it's Tim Walls, sounds like a hack stand-up comedian. Yes, agreed. No popping champagne for the a-holes who thought he was dead, says L-Dubs. Good. Yeah, exactly. You know how they were celebrating early. Never celebrate until you get in the end zone. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. You click the like, and if today's your first time watching the Wake Up America show, we know you're going to love it. So make sure you click the follow button as well so you can come back every Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. Oyosh! Arigatou gozaimasu. Barney Styles hanging out in the chat says, good morning, Sensei. Yes, he knows what to do. He knows you need to. Bow to your sensei. Bow to your sensei. Because you're the best. Nothing's gonna have, I'll keep you down. You're the best. Is that bow to your sensei too quiet? Keep it, hold on. Bow to your sensei. Bow to your sensei. Now that's a much better bow to your sensei. Yeah, today is Wednesday, by the way, so it's fight night. Fight night in Jefferson City. Hope to see you there tonight. Teaching karate at 5:30 and 6:30 tonight. Kids, then adults. Good morning, America. You're tuned into the Wake Up America show. This is the loudest Liberty megaphone in the nation. I'm Austin Petersen. Today's lineup is hotter than the price of your Walmart socks, thanks to tariffs. All right, let's give you the lay of the land, guys. First up, Democrats tried to build their own MAGA-style influencer army. Remember the whole Joe Rogan? We need our Joe Rogan of the left, right? They've been working on it. Dark money, secret contracts, gag orders, and TikTok kids ripping lines straight from DNC playbooks. And guess what? It blew up in their faces. Lovely. You love to see it. It's a wonderful thing. Well, we're going to talk this morning about why you can't buy authenticity, but you can buy bonus content on this show. They don't get much more authentic than AP. We're going to talk about why you can't buy authenticity, why their chorus program is collapsing. I don't know why I want to call it chorus, but like maybe I've been playing too many Final Fantasy games or starting to, maybe L-Dubs' anime obsession has started to like seep its way into my brain through osmosis. T-Mill22 says bruise clues. I don't know what that is, but that's a funny phrase. So the Democrats' attempts to try and create or to nurture their own Joe Rogan, it got strangled in the crib. We're going to talk about that this morning. And why the grassroots podcasters, people like us, people like the Wake Up America show, keep eating their lunch. Then we're going to dive into a sobering poll that should make you sit up straight and want to listen. A brand new Wall Street Journal NORC survey shows that only 1 in 4 Americans believe that they can improve their standard of living. The demoralization psyops that have been run against us have been working. And whether this comes from our own melees or whether it's coming as foreign psyops that are being enacted on the American people, whatever it is, they are effective. Americans are demoralized. 70% say that hard work in the United States doesn't pay anymore. So think about that, right? The American dream, the thing that built this country, it's the lowest point since the 1980s. We're going to drive into what's driving that despair. Housing costs, sticky inflations, tariffs, AI job fears, and what Liberty Solutions could do to actually restore faith in the future. After that, we're going to talk about Trump's big announcement, if we have time, sending the National Guard into Chicago and Baltimore, with or without the governor's approval. Now, listen, these cities are disasters. Violent crime, corruption, demoralized and corrupt police, right? On the other hand, if there's one force that could actually somehow make things worse, it's the federal government, all right? We're going to weigh the liberty concerns against the reality that the local leaders have flat out failed. At 8 a.m. Central, Judge Andrew Napolitano joins us to tackle the constitutional side of Trump's tariffs. The federal appeals court ruled them illegal. The administration is appealing. The judge is going to walk us through whether the Supreme Court might actually uphold emergency power tariffs and what that means for presidential authority. Judge Napolitano is back, baby. He's back on the show. And we've got him on a legal topic of import. And it's going to be a great conversation. Don't miss that. 8:30 a.m. Central, we'll be joined by new guest on the show today, Dr. Phil Magness. Looking forward to it. He's an economic historian. If you think we don't get big brain enough with Judge Napolitano, the brainiest of all brains, then you're crazy because we can get even bigger brain dead. We're going to be joined by Dr. Phil Magness. He's been taking a blowtorch to the post-liberal movement. Austin, what is post-liberal? I'd rather talk about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Shut up. This is the Wake Up America show. Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift was last week. You're going to take your medicine right now. You're going to learn about economics and philosophy and history because it matters. You can't have your pudding if you don't eat your meat. Boy, you got to be real old to get that one. So he's been taking a blowtorch to the post-liberal movement, exposing how they've declared war on free market economics, how they've scapegoated libertarians. It's my fault. It's our fault that the country is in a shambles. The people who believe in individual liberty. Yes, these people actually believe that Ronald Reagan was too libertarian. What? What the hell are you talking about?
No offense, but it sounds like some fucking commie gobbledygook.
Thanks, Norm. We don't need no education. What's up, Mando Hunter? It's nice to see you, bud. We don't see you enough in the chat. You got to be a friend to have friends. And finally, guys, and for those of you who hit the support goal, you know what's going to happen. We've got today's Breakfast Theater bonus content, full Alien encounter today. You guys ever been to Orlando and Walt Disney World? You know that it used to be Alien Encounter, but then it became Lilo and Stitch. It's this scary kind of experience. It's not quite a ride, but they strap you into it, and then like all you get like the hot breath of the animal coming over your. Did you ever go to that? The Alien experience? Walt Disney World Orlando. Okay, well, if you're a poor kid and you didn't get the e-ticket, then let me explain it to you from the good side of the tracks. For the kids who went to Walt Disney World. The Alien Encounter experience, we'll have that on the Wake Up America show this morning, if and only if we unlock the bonus content. This is how you get rich, kids. Unlock that bonus content, hit that $75 bonus goal. If we raise enough money on the show today, you unlock phase 1 of the bonus content, and boy, it is a doozy. We've got a good one for you today. A mini documentary of incredible import will unlock, and instead of going to commercial breaks when I go and bring my guests on the show, you get to watch a mini documentary, which is way more fun than commercials, but this is a commercial. So we need phase 2 of the bonus content unlocked if you want to see the aliens on the show today, if we hit $100 raised. And my recommendation to you guys is, if you haven't gone to the Liberty Shop lately, what have you done for him lately? Ooh, go to forlibertyshop.com. Check out the pillow collection. Do you see this awesome pillow that I got right here in front of me? This is the nuclear bomb that was dropped over Hiroshima. It's not to scale. It's a replica placed on a pillow, and it's really soft. It's part of our pillow collection. We have firearms like you would not believe. AK-47 pillows, AR-15 pillows, the C96 pistol from World War I and Battlefield 1 fame, for those who know. Speaking of energy swords, the George Washington flintlock pillow, a Glock, a grenade, in 1911, a literal killdozer pillow. Imagine going to sleep at night. We also have a candle with the lovely smell of a Komatsu bulldozer you can buy at the shop as well. Type in killdozer, you'll find our entire collection. However, my recommendation, this is the perfect shape for a pillow. Fat Man nuclear bomb shaped pillow. It might be a little tough to sleep at night on an M1 Garand. I'm just saying. So if you do want to go shopping at the shop today and unlock the bonus content, we need a mustache pillow, but we need the pineapple mustache as a pillow. How's that sound? There we go. Get those at forlibertyshop.com. They're super soft and very comfy. All right. So what's coming up today? So Democrats expose the American dream in crisis. Trump sending troops to the cities, Judge Napolitano on tariffs, Phil Magness on the war for the soul of conservatism, and an alien invasion, all to wrap it up. Guys, why are you not watching the Wake Up America show every stinking second of every stinking minute that we produce of this content? It's freaking amazing. All right, guys, so we're starting up strong. Democrats trying and failing to play influencer politics, right? Like they invented TikTok. They launched something called the Chorus Creator Incubators. It's been funded by this shadowy 1630 fund. These influencers were getting paid sometimes up to $8,000 a month to post progressive messages under gag orders, secret contracts, no disclosure, no, booking control of their shows. It's like corporate HR meets Pelosi PAC. And believe me, the internet smells that faster than your Aunt Nancy can say midterms, right? So here's the scoop. A Wired expose pulled back the curtain and showed, it's amazing that Wired has been around for so long and they're still relevant. Wired magazine pulled back the curtain. They showed just how sloppy this whole thing was run. It was a psyop that got outed. Influencers signed NDAs. They couldn't even admit they were getting paid. They lost autonomy over what they talked about, especially around sensitive topics like the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Some creators flipped. They accused others of selling out. The optics were worse when your secret contract is literally the opposite of influencer culture, which is, of course, authenticity. Now, this isn't your grandma's PAC. The 1630 Fund is a left-wing dark money powerhouse. Listen to this. $410 million spent in 2020, $130 million on ballot measures across the U.S. The Chorus program is just their latest iteration of control through cash. And what's happening here, this is classic astroturfing, right? Fake grassroots made to look organic. I've seen this kind of stuff all the time. I used to run ops like this out of Saigon. We've seen this a lot. Walmart paid PR to run a fake road trip blog. Hillary staff got caught boosting diaries with sock puppet accounts. Even PCs and drug companies have done it. The Dems are following a textbook playbook, but they're doing this on TikTok. It's really interesting. They're trying to grow the next Joe Rogan, but they can't do it. It's like, you know how corporations will take something and just turn it into absolute schlock? What was that old Simpsons joke where it was like they tried to make this the perfect cartoon character, like a corporate board tried to make the perfect cartoon character who was cool, and it was some like dog who skateboarded or something, and it had all the tropes and stereotypes of, you know, oh yeah, Scrappy the dog, he's cool, he rides a skateboard. It's like, you know, Steve Buscemi, the meme where he comes in, how do you do, fellow kids, and he's like 80 years old. Anybody know what I'm talking about? You know what it is? This is the Pokemon go to the polls speaking right there. It's like you have this authentic influencer, right? Maybe she's a lefty booby streamer, and she's like, kawaii, on her show all the time. But instead of going kawaii and making like little sexy like anime sounds and things like that, she's talking about like why she's a progressive socialist while she shows off her $3 million a month apartment. And so she goes, instead of going kawaii, she goes, now to Pokemon go to the polls, and you're like, Hillary, that bitch. Liberals can't do what you do because they aren't smart enough. Too many of their viewpoints are emotion-based and not facts-based. So just crying about their views doesn't translate like intellect. Man, I need to give that guy a job. Oh, wait, I did. That's Brad. Having your employee praise you as a boss is kind of like my wife thinks I'm pretty. Yeah. Or no, my mom thinks I'm cute. We're glad to have Brad Beckman here, though. We are very lucky to have the staff that we have at the For Liberty Network. There's 4 of us, and 2 of us are actually getting paid, and they're not the people who own the thing. Barney Styles, Drew Van Runkles, Amy J.E.'s as well. We're all hanging out here in the chat because we're like family, and that's why we hang out on Discord whenever we're not on the live show. Andy Opperman just wants the Wake Up America show to succeed because he went to the grift shop this morning and he bought himself a really nice Crying is Free Speech infant fine jersey bodysuit and a less government, more beer grilling apron. That's a very good one. I think Cecilia has that one, which means that we are now well on the way to unlock our bonus content today. We've raised 65 out of the $75 to $100 phase 1, phase 2 bonus goals. Super excited by that. I try and keep track during the show. I'm going to start pawning this off to Brad because I pay him. But that will help me to have a better Wake Up America show so I don't have to keep track of this stuff while I'm live. But it is $65 raised towards the bonus goal. So 10 more bucks will unlock that mini documentary. Thank you very much, Andy. Don't let Andy do all the work. All right. Where were we? Oh, yeah, we're talking about this influencer program. So Magdalene creators, they're pretty upfront about their training, their funding, their ideology. Their followers tend to have a better idea from how their operations are run. I mean, you can't have full transparency into people's contracts just because people have a right to have like private lives and personal business that is done, not necessarily with every single person in the world knowing. I think if you're a politician or in some other form of public service, that's a different matter. But private citizens have the right to earn money. I mean, it's pretty obvious, for example, that I'm sponsored by expatmoneysummit.com, but I'm also literally on the panel. So it makes sense for them to sponsor me because I'm going to be speaking at the Expat Money Summit. It's a totally online free summit. And you can go to expatmoneysummit.com. My sponsor, Mikkel Thorup, is hosting this Money Summit because, quite frankly, it's not just liberals who are trying to run away to places like Ireland, like Rosie O'Donnell, but we also have a lot of people that I know that are worried about the future of the United States, and they're looking for ways to make it down to Argentina in case Argentina cleans up their slop, which she seems to be doing a pretty damn good job at. So register if you want to see me, then you got to use a discount code. That is my name, Austin, AUSTIN. We'll get you the 20% discount on the VIP pass. Otherwise, they've got free events as well. So sign up at expatmoneysummit.com. So Courier Newsroom is another one of these lefty websites that's getting funded by the Democratic opposition, right? It presents as like local news, but these are dark money groups that are promoting these Democratic candidates. And I'm not just using dark money just so it sounds scary, but just to show you that there is not always the best intentions with a lot of what you read online. And I know you should probably roll your eyes if somebody tells you not to believe everything you read on the internet. But the reason why I'm saying it, and it needs to be said, sometimes the truth bears repeating, is that I have a boomer in the family. And this boomer loves to share boomer news for boomers on Boomer Book, if you know what I'm saying, guys. Now, if you're watching a list, people get really sensitive when you say, okay, boomer. And I'm just saying it's a mindset. So he shares a lot of this boomer news from Boomer Book. And it's now with AI, it's so easy to get taken advantage of. Even now, I find myself, I'll be watching a video and it looks so real. And then I'm kind of like, wait a minute. Is it real? You know, and most people, they watch something, they just accept it. They think it's real and then they move on, right? But then their thoughts, they're thinking about that misinformation or that disinformation that they read, they're acting out. They're talking that information. But it used to be that whenever we thought, when misinformation spread, it was something like, oh, did you know that the kid from Wonder Years ended up going on to be Marilyn Manson? And, everybody just believed it for like 20 or 30 years. Oh, yeah. Paul, the one with the glasses. Yeah. Marilyn Manson. Thanks, Robbie Thurman. He says, American Eagle jeans only go up to size 18. They don't need to worry about a liberal boycott. Ooh. Ouch. Good one. And thank you for the donation. That means that we've unlocked the bonus content. Yeah, first phase. Way to go, guys. We're going to unlock that bonus content for you today, that phase one. That means that when we go to our commercial break to have Judge Napolitano here in about 30 minutes to talk about the tariff lawsuits, then you'll watch the bonus content instead of the commercials, which is great. So, and then $25 left to go to phase two. So we appreciate you guys very much. Thank you very much for that, Andy and Robbie. Jody Rankin asks, have I seen the video of Trump canceling Pride Month in June? No, I have not, although that is kind of funny. Next topic, we're going to talk about something deeper than the news cycle. Well, am I going to have time for that? It's 7:25. I better get to the big news or I'm afraid I'm not going to miss it. We'll talk about people in the American dream. I'll push that off to a little bit later if we can. But I want to talk about the one of these double-edged swords. President Trump says he's sending the National Guard to Chicago and Baltimore. Here's how the left reacts.
How do you respond to the argument that there were something like 50 plus shootings, 52 people, I should say, were shot in Chicago, 30 different shootings over the holiday weekend, 7 people killed. Aren't numbers like that still a problem that your city needs to address? What more can be done to address that?
Well, I think that what we need to do is we also had a mass shooting in a Catholic school. We also have had many instances where the administration has really escalated, exacerbated.
This is Byron Sicho Lopez, Chicago alderman for the ward with the large Hispanic population. So he's asked this question about the insane amount of shootings that go on in Chicago and deaths every weekend in Chicago. And here's what he says. He says that, oh, we know that there have been shootings in Catholic schools. It's like, that's a classic whataboutism right there. They do not care about the violence that the people in their community, you know what? They probably feed off of it. And people like Byron Sigcho Lopez, they probably are part of the corruption, right? This guy is probably cartel, or he gets money from Mexican cartels. There's so much dirty money that goes around. And they get paid to look the other way. You know, the cops get corrupted because of the war on drugs. And then, of course, they get paid out. That's why they don't. How are drugs spreading in our cities? Well, it's because police are looking the other way. No shit. Do we have enough police resources? They always say we never have enough resources. Trust me, they got plenty of resources, right? The cops are all on the take. They're making money if the war on drugs. They do that so they don't go after the little drug. They don't go after the little drug people, right? And then they get people like this Byron Sigcho Lopez elected, right? Think about how the war on drugs impacts our communities. And they get Byron Sigcho Lopez, front for the cartels, elected. And then all the cops get paid off. So they don't go after the lower level dealers. And what do the cartels do? They feed them a bust every once in a while. They'll be like, okay, we're going to have this little guy here. We're going to, they'll sacrifice a couple of soldiers, right? And the cops get to stand in front of an arsenal, and they get to continue to push us towards the UK, because what the left, of course, is pushing us towards is the United Kingdom. What the United Kingdom is experiencing now is what the left has in store for us. Sharia law, and they have what they call anarcho-tyranny, which is what Chicago truly is. Chicago and Baltimore are anarcho-tyrannies. The left is trying to push us into a situation where if the street thug, the violent gang member, attacks an innocent person on the street, if the innocent person happens to defend themselves, they go to jail and the thug is out 2 or 3 days later, because that's the left. That's the MO that the left is running on. They're styling the future of America after what the UK looks like. Speech laws. You can't say things about transgender people. You can't talk about. So he says, oh, you have things to shit. What's amazing about Sigcho Lopez here is that he'll immediately divert from having to answer problems of crime in his community to talking about a shooting in a Catholic school, because he thinks that helps his narrative against the Trump administration for coming in to clean things up. But ask him about the transgender shooter problem that we have in this country, and then all of a sudden it's like, you know what I'm saying? Let's be real. I mean, Chicago, Baltimore, these cities have been complete disasters for decades. Trump says whether the governors like it or not, they're going in. And as a liberty guy, I always get nervous when the federal government starts deploying troops at our borders. This is not a small thing. Federal boots on the ground in America ought to set off some alarms. It's one thing for Washington, D.C. It's completely different when it's the other states. Chicago and Baltimore, however, are complete disasters, murder capitals, corruption factories, budget sinkholes. It's not like they're going to get much worse. It's really hard. If anybody can make it worse, it's the federal government, but it is hard. But Trump's framing here is classic Trump. He said he'd love it if Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker picked up the phone and give him a call. He said he'd love it and asked nicely for the National Guard to come in. Here's J.B. Pritzker asked about the violence in his state.
You're going to hear people, especially...
Oh, come on, dear stinking goodness gracious. Dadgummit.
People, especially this past weekend. 54 shot, 7 dead. Yeah. They're going to say the city's not safe. Would you ask your friends to ride the L after midnight or after, 9 o'clock at night even to come down to the city from O'Hare?
Look, big cities have crime. There's no doubt about it. But let's just pay attention to what President Trump is doing targeting Chicago. He's overlooking red states that have much higher crime rates.
See, whataboutism. They can't answer the problems. By the way, the crimes in those red states, guess where they're coming from? The blue cities. Duh. You idiot. Utter trash. So, all right. So, constitutionally, there are paths to federal intervention. The Insurrection Act of 1807, for example, is one. Eisenhower invoked this to desegregate schools in Arkansas. But anytime you see the president unilaterally talk about marching troops into cities, you'd better be watching it pretty carefully. But have you looked at the stats lately? Listen to this. Chicago had more murders than New York and Los Angeles combined in recent years. Combined, Chicago. Right? Baltimore's homicide rate has been at the top of the charts. sometimes Baltimore's homicide rate has been 3 times the national average. They've had progressive prosecutors for years. They don't prosecute, right? City councils are more worried about renaming streets and making them gay with rainbow flags and keeping them safe. And police forces are demoralized or outright fleeing, as we have seen back in the Summer of Love, the George Floyd riots. Residents have been begging for relief. They've been begging for somebody to take the trash out, literally and figuratively. So this is why Trump's move has a certain political logic. He looks at Chicago and he looks at Baltimore, and he says that if these cities are already hellholes, what do I have to lose in sending in troops? If he cleans these cities up, he looks like the good guy. If he doesn't clean up the cities, and if things don't return to normal, which a lot of people predict that the federal government is going to be incapable of ensuring lasting order in these cities because they can't live there forever. We're going to have, next to the homeless encampments, you're going to have barracks set up because the homeless have to go somewhere. I just don't know if Americans have the testicular fortitude to do what other countries like Japan do when it comes to their homeless. They build little communities for them, and then they make them go live there. It's not a choice. You don't live in like the populated areas. You don't hang out on the streets in Panhandle in front of the Diet. You go out, you go live in the little homeless community over there, and they have them tucked away. There's actually a really good documentary series you can find that you can find on the homeless in Japan and how they deal with them. It's Americans would say, oh, this is savage, right? Because Americans are, being a Christian nation and the way that Americans look at poverty, it's just a very different feel, because whether you're a left-wing Christian or a right-wing Christian, although right-wing Christians tend to be Christians, right-wing. Say that 3 times fast. Right-wing Christians, right-wing Christians, right-wing Christians. Whoa. Right-wing Christians tend to be more realistic about the homeless problem. But the left-wing Christians are insane. The poor you will have always with you, and they must live in your house and be able to poop on your front yard. Chicago had more murders than New York and LA. Baltimore homicide rate 3 times the national average. Residents are begging for help. Trump steps in. He looks at Chicago, Baltimore, says, how can it be worse? Even if it gets a little bit better, he can say, look, I cleaned it up, right? If it doesn't, he can shrug and blame the Democrats for tying his hands on this. Either way, it reinforces this narrative that blue cities can't govern themselves. But here is my concern, and I think it should be your concern as well. Once you normalize these federal military deployments in cities, where does it stop? Today it's Chicago and Baltimore. Tomorrow it's Portland. Then maybe it's Kansas City. Then maybe, hey, it's Jefferson City, right? If the White House doesn't like how we run things, then, this is kind of a slope that we really, I don't think we should, try and slide down. What do you guys think? Do you agree? Disagree? Somewhere in between? Drop us a comment. Speaking of Jefferson City, what do we got? Overcast, 62 degrees. Man, we need some rain. It's still too dry. The Wake Up America show is brought to you in part by viewers and listeners like you. We'd love to have you be a regular guest of the show. Send us a text at 573-319-1586. You can hear from us anytime, or we can hear from you anytime at that phone number that you see on the bottom of the screen. That's our text line. Send us a text if you have questions. Like Frickety Fred Siegel yesterday said he wanted a pair of our Trump sneakers, but for some reason he wasn't able to add it to cart. Little technical things like that. Don't worry. If something's wrong with the audio on the Wake Up America show, I know I'm going to get 7 text messages from you guys. So that's good, though. It's fine. Whenever you make a mistake, it's in public and everyone corrects you. It's a good feeling. Feels good. President Trump says Tuesday he's sending National Guards to Chicago and Baltimore, regardless of state approval. We'll talk to Judge Napolitano about that as well. Do you think Trump is right to do this when local leaders fail? Should the residents of the cities welcome the Guard, or should they be more concerned about the precedent? Where do you draw the line between restoring order and eroding local control? Love to hear your thoughts on this one. These are questions for you. If your city were overrun with crime, did I just suddenly develop like a speech impediment this morning? Overrun with crime. Marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. So where do you draw the line? Love to hear your thoughts. So at this point, the murder rate in Chicago is so high that the Grim Reaper is asking for a union contract. Baltimore's infrastructure is so bad that if the National Guard goes in, they'll need GPS, a snorkel, and a tetanus shot. Have you ever ridden the train from New York City to Washington, D.C. and seen Baltimore? As you go by on the left, you'll see Baltimore, and it's the backs of the buildings in the city, of the downtown area, and they're just all of this housing that has been built, and it looks like there's been a structure fires, multiple structure fires, and everything is collapsed in and caved in. It looks like Lebanon. It looks like Beirut. It looks like Gaza. It might be as dangerous as Gaza. Unless you are Mossad. Amy J. Ease, Arvolt 24, feds in the streets, criminals in the sheets. Yeah. Good morning. Trump says DC is now a safe zone. So great. Maybe he's going to send the Guard to fix the metro escalators because those things are always breaking down. Honestly, if your city is already dumpster fire, arguing about federal overreach kind of feels like worrying about the smell of the marshmallows there. Oh, yes. What is the smell of the marshmallows? Eric Wilson says Trump is calling everything an emergency. Yeah, he's wielding the sword that was forged before him. Life comes at you fast. Good point. They just need to pull all federal funds, every last nickel, until they clean up their act, says Amy J. E's. Interesting. There's voted for this, and then there's your basic rights. Citizens need protection from the local tyrant, unwilling to uphold equality under the law. And thank you, Quest, for that lovely $2 donation. You are a beautiful man. That means that we're doing so good raising the bonus content, guys. I'm so excited, especially because the success of the bonus content program has made us punch above our weight so much that we're growing. The For Liberty Network is expanding. We're adding new shows. We're bringing in, or the bonus content is where we have phase 2 of the bonus content and now we're going to have a phase 3 of the bonus content coming soon. And the bonus content program has been a huge part of that. So thank you guys very much for doing that, putting that together. I hope that you appreciate that we produce such high quality streaming 5 days a week. For those who have never watched the Wake Up America show and are just tuning in and like, who the hell is this guy? I hope that you guys will join us by clicking the follow button and coming back 5 days a week, every Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time. That's the Wake Up America show's live stream schedule. We've got Judge Napolitano coming up to join us 20 minutes from now. Very excited to have him to talk about the constitutional case against tariffs, with the possibility of the tariffs going to the Supreme Court, the tariff decision going to the Supreme Court. We'll see if the Supreme Court is going to uphold the president's emergency power on tariffs. That'll be interesting. The judge is the perfect guest for that, and he'll be here in 20 minutes. Then at 8:30 a.m. Central Time, we're going to get big brain philosophical time with Dr. Phil Magness, who will join us for his very first time here on the Wake Up America show. And he's going to share with us the war on free markets that is coming. That is the fight between the post-liberals and the libertarians in the Republican Party. Going to be an interesting discussion at 8:30 a.m., so do not go away. Okay. Arvolt 24 says, escalators never really break. They just become stairs. Ah, yes, true. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We're so glad to have all of our friends here joining us on the Wake Up America show. Let's hit the next topic. I think we've got, 41, man, I got 20 minutes. I don't know if I can make both these topics work. I'm going to try and flow between them, guys. So hold on to your butts, guys. This is because I want to segue to the judge perfectly. All right. So let's talk about tariffs. I don't have time for the American Dream story. I'll try and maybe sneak it in tomorrow morning. If you think about this, guys, this affects everybody. You go into Walmart or Target. Stephanie's putting together our mobile order pickup order for Walmart today. All right, doing a food run. And suddenly those trusty little price tags on your jeans or on the socks that you buy, or even your kids' back to school clothes are gone. Have you noticed this? This is a big change that has occurred recently. It used to be that most tags on items were clearly marked and you could see the prices on the product itself. If you picked up a product, you were going to find a tag that was going to say how much the item costs. Have you noticed lately in recent months that you've been shopping that you've been seeing fewer and fewer price tags on the items themselves? Now, why would that be? Are we in the middle of a tag shortage? Did sticker factories suddenly unionize? No. Actually, employees themselves are posting on TikTok saying that management has told them as quickly as possible to rip the tags off, and it's so that they can quietly reprice these items on the fly. They're having to reprice items as fast as possible. One worker even said that she spent an entire 8-hour shift doing nothing but tearing off tags. That's not a retail job. That's a government job. So what's really happening here? Both Walmart and Target are bracing for price hikes as tariffs ripple through the supply chain. Instead of being upfront and saying, hey, your socks cost more because, of course, tariffs raise costs, they're trying to sneak it by us. You peel the tag off, slap a new number on the shelf, and hope you don't notice that yesterday's $9.99 underwear is now $13.49. I don't know where people are even getting underwear for $13.49. Every time I go and I look at underwear, when I have to buy underwear on the rare occasion, because for whatever reason, I'm a dad that doesn't get any for Christmas. Hint, hint. When I buy underwear at like Walmart or Target, like a normal American human does, it's expensive. And even if you go to like the discount stores, are you like rocking a TJ Maxx? Are you in Max in Easthead? Do you have the TJ Maxx rewards card? Because I sure do, and I use it and I get those rewards. Well, sue me. I'm middle class. Shut up. I don't care. I don't go to Coach. I got this shirt from the Gap on sale at the outlet in St. Louis. $13. Yeah, but underwear is expensive. Right? Even if you go to TJ Maxx and you go to the underwear section, you'll find that like they have the 4-packs, right? And it'll be like Calvin Klein or it'll be Tommy or something like that. And if they have them in your size, which they won't because most of men are fat asses like me, they got a nice big round booty. Mine is not that I'm fat. It's just that I got a big butt. It's healthy. BBL. Kermode says, oh, here, Austin, let me help you buy some underwear. Thank you. Underwear has been expensive for years, says Amy J. Eves. Why do women even wear underwear? When we finally take over, only sexy lingerie is allowed. Just kidding. Thank you, Kermode. We appreciate you, bud. But customers are noticing because a lot of these videos are going viral, showing identical children's outfits on the racks with different prices. Some with tags, some without. And so people are seeing the price changes. The prices are going up and people are pretty furious. And rightfully so. Well, one commenter nailed it, said, leave the prices on so America can see what they would have been without those tariffs. I agree. That's transparency. These mega stores are afraid of pissing everyone off. We were told that they were eating the price of the tariffs. They were never going to do that. I wouldn't do it. Guys, business owners. The secret is the business, they don't pay the taxes, you fools. We pass these taxes on to you. Yes. You filthy W-2 wage slaves. Don't forget to keep the Rumble rants going. I heard the Trump administration is going to have the no tax on tips apply to streamers. Did you guys see the news? I'm totally serious. The no tax on tips, apparently first 25,000. Rumble rants, so drop them in, baby. Yeah, the elite. We run this thing. We run this show. We are the reptilians. We are the right-wing elite podcast streamers with the first $25,000 of our revenue being tax-free. So every Rumble rant you send today might be tax-free. Can you imagine? You know what I need to do is I need to set up one of those funds here on the show where we fundraise for charities, and I'll be like, please give to the Jews in Israel who are so poor. Your money will go to the poor Jewish people. Like those Fox News ads, that you watch on Christmas with your boomer dad. But then they take the money and then we use that money for our own corporate write-off. You fools. We're not going to pay the taxes. We're just going to raise the prices on you, the peasant, the working class. That's how this thing works, by the way. Paying $12 for a thong did for me. What are you talking about, Joni? Chicks be talking about. Do women still wear thongs? I saw a thong on like a very tight pair of like sweatpants a chick was wearing the other day, and it was not good. It was not as good as advertised. I'm not saying it's you call me gay or whatever, but you just had to see it. It was very day class A. This show's gone off the rails. So Walmart apparently issued a statement on this when we're just moving prices to shelf labels. To shelf labels, excuse me. I put the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable there. We're moving prices to shelf labels. That's how you do it. To be flexible and competitive. Yeah, I'm moving my wallet to a new pocket to make it easier for the IRS to reach. Yes. I'm not moving it away. I'm not trying to. I'm going to the Expat Money Summit to learn how to make it easier for the IRS to take my money. Yes, Smithers. But here's the bigger story, guys. Guess what? Tariffs are taxes, period. You slap tariffs on goods from abroad, those costs don't disappear. They don't get absorbed by greedy CEOs. They get passed down the line, and the last link in that chain is you at the checkout. But you already knew this because you're brilliant. Tariffs hit low-income households the hardest, of course, because a bigger chunk of their budget goes to the underwear that the men should wear, and the basics and things like that are sold at Walmart and Target. So Judge Napolitano is going to join us in 10 minutes at 8 a.m. to talk about the legal and constitutional side of the government tinkering with the economy. Can the feds pick winners and losers this way? What does it mean for consumer liberty when tariffs distort the purchases that we make? Then at 8:30 this morning on the Wake Up America show, guys, it's going to be fantastic. Dr. Phil Magness will join us, one of the sharpest economic historians out there, to break down how tariffs have always been the classic political move to punish your enemies while pretending to help the working man. Spoiler alert, it never works the way that the politicians promise. But let's keep this grounded. If you've been in the aisles lately and you notice price tags missing, you're not crazy. It's happening. And if you're mad about it, good. You should be, right? Because whether it's Target's new no price matching policy or Walmart's disappearing tags, the common denominator is government distortion in the marketplace. That's what tariffs do. And if you think it's bad now, just wait until the next round of trade wars kick in. And so don't blame the kid tearing off the tags. Don't even blame Walmart or Target. Look at the tariff man in Washington who tells you with a straight face that America's economy is hotter than ever while you're standing in front of an empty peg wondering how your socks just went up 40%. Okay, so Judge Napolitano is going to talk to us about the legality of the tariffs, and then we'll have Dr. Phil Magness on to talk about the economic history of the 20 and now 21st centuries. 21st century magic in the air. All right, Bruno Mars, it's a dangerous man with your money on your mind. We got 107 people watching the show. That's great, bro. You can make a show with 107 people work. And we do. And it's because you guys are so freaking generous with us. Thank you so much for people like Kermode Bear and Quest Fanning and Andy Opperman and Joel Edamore and Robbie Thurman who've stuck their neck outs this morning and opened up their wallets to make it easier for us. Please, do you know what this is? Does anybody without prompting or who wasn't listening earlier and already knows, do you know what this is? Can you tell? Look at this from the side. You can see it from the back, right? This is the bomb that was dropped over Hiroshima, a scalar replica. No, just kidding. And it's a nice, squishy, soft, comfy pillow. If you've ever thought to yourself, I would love to hug nuclear death at night, this is a really great item to add to your collection. It's from the Pulo collection. Stephanie came up with that title, by the way, like pew pew, the Pulo collection, because it's not just a nuclear weapon that you can have, a nice little recreational nuke for real recreation. At forlibertyshop.com, if you type in Pulo, P-E-W-L-O-W, the Pulo collection, we also have AK-47s, AR-15s, C-96 pistols of World War I fame, energy swords for the kids, or maybe the adults, grenade pillows, that one looks really good, I want that one too, M60 machine guns, 1911 pistols, miniguns, German MP40s, MP5s, revolvers, rocket launchers, tanks, Tommy guns, Uzis, Vector, Chris Vectors, and our mascot for the Freedom Arcade Show, Wizard Rifle Mage McBoomstick pillows. They're amazing, and they're only available where? At the Liberty Shop, forlibertyshop.com. Get you guys a sweet little nuclear weapon pillow, and it's really soft, I promise you. It feels really good. You will love it, and it's the Pulo collection at forlibertyshop.com. I just got mine, and I'm really looking forward to like leaning on this while I'm playing video games. So it's a streamer's dream. It's a Wake Up America show. We got 5 minutes left. You guys have unlocked the bonus content. You're freaking amazing. I'm going to go to a break, but you don't have to watch commercials because you've unlocked that bonus content. Let's get it on. We'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America shows. Judge Napolitano coming back in 5 minutes. You cannot miss a single stinking minute. I'm snapping my fingers and I'm pointing at you, right? It's very rude. It's very hostile. But I'm telling you, you don't get to go anywhere unless it's to the For Liberty shop. So we do a little grifting. Go to forlibertyshop.com. Grab yourself a Pulo. I'll be right back with the judge. You can hug your anime waifu by the pillow later on the Wake Up America shows for Liberty Network.
An Alaska man is petitioning the Supreme Court to consider whether the government's seizure of his $95,000 plane for transporting an illicit six-pack of beer is an excessive fine under the Eighth Amendment. The Institute for Justice, a public interest law firm, filed a petition for writ of certiorari today on behalf of Ken Jupi, an 82-year-old Alaskan bush pilot, asking the Supreme Court to rule on whether states should consider the gravity of a defendant's specific offense rather than an abstract view of the general crime. Jupi was convicted of a misdemeanor in 2012 when state troopers searched his plane before takeoff and discovered that a passenger was attempting to bring several cases of beer to a dry village where alcohol is prohibited. Jupi was only culpable for a single six-pack of Budweiser that troopers said was in plain sight. But the state wasn't through with Jupi. For the past 13 years, prosecutors have sought to seize his Cessna U-206D through asset forfeiture, a process which allows police and prosecutors to seize property connected to criminal activity. The Institute for Justice says the case of Jupi's Cessna is a perfect example of why the Eighth Amendment exists. The excessive fines clause of the Constitution was built for cases like this, Sam Gedge, a senior attorney at the Institute for Justice, said in a press release. As government agencies increasingly exploit fines and forfeitures to pad their budgets, it's vital that the Supreme Court make clear that the excessive fines clause is a meaningful check on government overreach. And it's a chance for the Institute for Justice to build on its previous Supreme Court victory regarding excessive fines and fees. In 2019, the Supreme Court ruled in response to an Institute for Justice lawsuit that the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on excessive fines and fees applies to states under the incorporation doctrine. In the underlying case, Indiana police had seized a Land Rover from a man named Tyson Timms for a minor drug crime. But while the Supreme Court ruled that states are bound by the Eighth Amendment, the justices left it up to state courts to determine what constitutes an excessive fine. Many states adopted proportionality tests that involve some analysis of personal culpability. In 2021, for example, the Indiana Supreme Court rejected prosecutors' arguments that there should be no proportionality limit on seizures in drug cases like Tim's, and it ordered Tim's car to be returned to him after 8 years in legal limbo. However, other courts, such as the Alaska Supreme Court and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, have focused instead on the maximum penalties for worst-case offenders and more abstract social ills that the criminal statutes in question sought to address. Under that rubric, the Alaska Supreme Court ruled this April that the forfeiture of Jupi's plane was not excessive. Alcohol abuse in rural Alaska leads to increased crime, disorders such as alcoholism, conditions such as fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and death, imposing substantial costs on public health and the administration of justice. Within this context, it is clear that the illegal importation of even a six-pack of beer causes grave societal harm, the ruling states. This factor strongly suggests that the forfeiture is not grossly disproportional. The Institute for Justice argues in its petition that this interpretation flies in the face of the historical understanding of the excessive fines clause, and that the question of proportionality implicates the Constitution's most textually explicit check on extravagant economic sanctions, including both civil and criminal forfeitures. This case isn't just about me or my airplane anymore, Jupi said in an Institute for Justice press release. I'm in my 80s now, and I've been fighting this for over a decade because I see it as my duty to ensure that the Bill of Rights actually means something in protecting against government overreach.
Are you tired of the strange radioactive effects of leftist culture? Do you ever wonder what happened to good old-fashioned American values? Well, fear no more, because there's a new force fighting back against the cultural rot of today. Introducing Culturama, a right-of-center talk show that's taking back the future today. Hosted by none other than blonde bombshell herself, Daniela Pensack. She's not just talking, she's taking culture back. With sharp takes, brilliant guests, and a few surprises along the way. Tune in to the live video podcast twice a week, because the future doesn't have to be weird. It can be Culturama.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian, and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Welcome back to the Wake Up America show. Let's dive into one of the most important and important legal and economic battles that is happening right now. So late last week, a federal appeals court struck down most of President Trump's tariffs, ruled them illegal. And these weren't just tariffs on steel or aluminum, but these are the sweeping reciprocal tariffs that Trump rolled out in April. And then he had a separate set that was aimed at China, Canada, and Mexico. And they said it was because of the fentanyl imports. The court says, nope, that is not legal under the Constitution as it's currently applied. The administration is appealing this, and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says that he is confident that the Supreme Court will uphold Trump's authority. So on one hand, tariffs are basically the most important thing that Trump campaigned on when he ran for president. He's not going to let this go. And nobody seems to want to stand in his way, up to and including absolutely obliterating Venezuelan speedboats out of the blue. Did anybody see that dramatic live video yesterday? Joining us live to talk about all of that and more is back from his vacation. We missed him very much. One of the world's foremost legal minds from the liberty perspective, the author of several books, and I was his faithful protege for 2 wonderful years when he was the host of Freedom Watch on the Fox Business Network. Now he's the host of, it's got to be one of the most popular podcasts in the world, Judge Andrew Napolitano's Judging Freedom, which you can download on any of your mobile devices. Here is the judge. All rise for the good, the great Judge Andrew Napolitano. Good morning, Judge.
Oh, good morning, Austin. Thank you for your very generous, over-the-top introduction.
I learned from you, Judge. I learned it from the absolute best. So we're grateful to have you back, Judge. So let's start with the appeals court ruling. Why did they say that Trump's tariffs were illegal?
Trump based his authority on a statute that gave him emergency powers to block the importation of goods that would have a deleterious effect on the American economy if there was an emergency. The same statute defines emergency as a sudden and unexpected event. So first the president said, I gotta make it more expensive for this stuff to come in the country because we have to block the importation of fentanyl. Well, that wasn't sudden and it wasn't unexpected. Then he said, we're in a trade imbalance. That's the emergency. Well, we've been in a trade imbalance since 1934, so that wasn't sudden and it wasn't unexpected. So on the very basis of the statute itself, he failed to meet the triggers necessary for him to bar the importation. Now, the statute doesn't mention tariffs. And in order for the Congress to give away any of its core powers, principle among which is taxation, it would at least have to mention taxation or tariffs in the statute. So because the court found, same as the trial court below, Congress never gave away this authority to the president, and because a tariff is a tax, and because there was no emergency, the tariffs based on that emergency statute were invalidated. Interestingly, the appellate court didn't go here, but the trial court did. The trial court, which in this case is a panel of 3 judges, not 1, but 3, said, even if Congress did give the president the power to tax, that would be an unconstitutional violation of the separation of powers because the Supreme Court has ruled that the core responsibilities of each of the branches, those that are articulated in the Constitution, cannot be switched around. The president couldn't make the Chief Justice the commander-in-chief of the military, even if he wanted to, because that's a core function given exclusively to the president. Same with taxation. The very first power of the 16 enumerated powers in Article 1 giving powers to the Congress is the power to tax. So that's where we are. It was a 7-4 decision. They stayed the decision until the middle of October to give the administration time to appeal to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court doesn't have to take it. It probably will. I can't really predict, and I don't know how Scott Bessent can, how the Supreme Court will rule on this. The government's argument is that these tariffs are a tool of foreign policy, and in foreign policy, the president's behavior is essentially uncheckable by the courts or by the Congress. The Supreme Court used the president's own words against him. This was about raising money, not about foreign policy.
What is the point of even having a Congress or having a constitutional authorization for the powers of the purse reserved to Congress if the president can just say foreign policy lets me do whatever I want? He can raise his own private armies. He can fundraise at will. He can raise taxes unilaterally. It just strikes me as insane that we've gotten to this point. And really, at the end of the day, Judge, it's very simple. It's not nobody really cares about the laws. The president just does whatever he wants and then says it's legal according to some statute that was written in 1907. They can find a good lawyer, like you always say, can indict a grand jury could indict a ham sandwich. A good lawyer can find an excuse for anything the president does, can't they?
I'm sorry to say I have to agree with everything you've said. The true culprit here is Congress, because all of these things that he is attempting to do now, he wants to change elections, he wants to change the name of the Defense Department. These things can only be done by Congress, and Congress is supine. Republicans in Congress are except for Thomas Massey and Rand Paul, are terrified of him. They go along with whatever he wants. They look the other way when he kills people. They look the other way when he unilaterally imposes taxes. They look the other way when he does things that only the Congress can do. This is why the self-made billionaire Ray Dalio argued yesterday that we're approaching a constitutional crisis and we're on the verge of very serious authoritarianism. I don't know how this ends. I can't predict it. But if the Supreme Court becomes as supine as the Congress, then Trump will receive that as a signal to do literally whatever he wants.
We're speaking to Judge Andrew Napolitano here on the Wake Up America show. We're glad and thankful to have him here. If you have a question for the judge, you can send us a text at 573-319-1586. Judge, the court has declared, the lower court decision has declared that Trump has to return all of the tariff money. And as you and I know, when the government takes money, it goes into a black hole never to be seen again. What are we looking at if the Supreme Court decides that the lower court decision was correct, and we don't know which way it's going to go? How could he possibly return all the money that he's stolen already?
Well, the Supreme Court, if it affirms the trial court and the appellate court, will probably affirm it prospectively only. If it were to make it retroactive, this would be an economic morass because billions have been paid by the ultimate user, which is the American consumer. So you buy a toaster at Walmart, it normally costs $25, you pay $30. Where did the $5 go? Well, the $5 reimbursed Walmart, which reimbursed its importer, which paid the tariff when the toaster reached California. So all that money would have to be repaid. It would, like I said, be an economic morass. In fact, it would be almost impossible to do. So if the court were to do this, I think it would be prospective only.
Judge Napolitano this morning live on the Wake Up America show. He also has a weekly column at judgenap.com. Make sure you're reading those every Thursday they come out. So, Judge, the administration, they floated Section 338 of the 1930 Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act as a backup. What do you make of reviving Depression-era laws for modern tariffs?
Well, even that law does not allow the president to use it on his own. Look, all he has to do, he doesn't want to do this because the Republicans are afraid to vote to raise taxes. All he has to do is ask Congress to impose the tariffs, and all this litigation goes away. Tariffs are absolutely lawful when enacted by Congress. We all know that. They go back to the time of Thomas Jefferson. I mean, the federal government relied on tariffs in substantial part for its very subsistence prior to the War for Southern Independence in the 1860s. So I'd have to reread Smoot-Hawley, but there is no authorization for the president to impose his own tariffs. There is authorization for the president to impose embargoes and for those embargoes to be criminal. Supreme Court has ruled that the president can do that. That ruling is defective, in my opinion, because it allows the president, not the Congress, to decide what's a crime and what isn't. But no statute and no act of Congress has ever authorized the president to impose his own tariffs on whomever he chooses for whatever amount he wants in order to raise money.
I had a saying back in 2018 when I was running for the U.S. Senate against Josh Hawley that whenever the question of tariffs would come up, Judge, I would say, never trust a politician named Smoot or Hawley.
Very clever. I didn't make the connection. Very clever.
Oh, he's a big fan of tariffs. He's also a big fan of whatever it is that Trump does, whether we like it or whether it's constitutional or not. I actually heard a saying the other day from some whispering people in Congress that Senator Hawley actually gets his hackles raised whenever he hears someone saying that they believe in free markets or economic liberty. He sees that as a big, big red flag. Many in Congress have turned against us. Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, these were heroes during the Tea Party years, Judge. The Republican Party has turned damn near violently against its roots. Get this, Judge. The Republican Party, many in the Republican Party are loudly criticizing Ronald Reagan for, get this, Judge, being too libertarian. Wow. They didn't like because of his, well, first of all, the many will say because of his 1986 machine gun laws, they didn't like Reagan. That wasn't a libertarian thing. But it was his amnesty to illegal aliens specifically that they say is the problem. Senators Hawley and people like J.D. Vance and others calling themselves post-liberals take aim at economic liberals like ourselves and say, we are the problem in the Republican Party and Ronald Reagan was too libertarian. How would you respond to that?
They don't really have a consistent philosophy, Austin. It's just their version of big government. Reagan, I think, was just an amiable Western libertarian who truly believed the government should leave us alone, but frequently caved to the people around him. I would be critical of Reagan from the other perspective in that he was not a consistent libertarian. But in terms of Vice President Vance and Senator Hawley and Senator Cotton and Senator Graham and all those guys, they just want their country club version of big government. They don't criticize the president when he exceeds his powers under the Constitution. They probably would vote in favor of criminalizing flag burning, like that's a problem that we have to get back to after the court has ruled on it twice. I have no regard for them. In many respects, Chuck Schumer and company are far more intellectually honest and faithful to their first principles than these Republicans we're talking about.
Judge, what do you make of Trump sending the National Guard into Chicago and to Baltimore? It's really hard to make those cities worse, but if there's one institution that could possibly do it, it would be the federal government. That's my opinion. What's yours?
The Constitution doesn't authorize it. A federal judge in San Francisco just ruled yesterday that the 1876 law, which was written to remove the troops from southern states 10 years after the end of the War for Southern Independence, is still valid today, and it prohibits the use of the military for ordinary law enforcement. He held a trial at which members of the military, as well as people who had been arrested and people who were just bystanders witnessing this, testified that the troops were chasing speeders, arresting drunk drivers, chasing bank robbers, directing traffic, moving homeless out of the parks. These are functions that the military cannot do under federal law. So he wisely didn't order them removed. He said if the president wants them there to protect federal assets, meaning human beings and physical assets, he can do that, but they are prohibited from. And then there's a long litany of law enforcement behavior which they're prohibited from doing. The same will apply to Baltimore and Chicago. I would expect that a federal judge will enjoin those people before the boots even hit the ground.
Judge, something tells me that just a message of this is just, looking at ourselves being self-critical, that just a message of Rothbardian Austrian economics is not necessarily the cure to Baltimore's ills. You and I both have ridden that train between New York City and Washington, D.C. many times. And you see Baltimore looks in some ways like representing a city in Gaza. And we're talking about a once great city of the United States. We're talking about civilizational decline here. I would want to apply our principles at the city level, but I don't know if that necessarily is the solution. Those cities need law and order. How do we go from a Beirut style situation in an American city like Baltimore to a first world city that we deserve as Americans? We don't deserve to live in a country that has rotted out cities and husks like that. How do we solve those problems?
Well, public safety is not a federal function. It's reserved to the states under the 10th Amendment. So the first thing we do is to get the federal government out of there. As you just said a few minutes ago, whatever problem you want to solve, it'll get worse when the feds get involved. Baltimore has voluntarily chosen to have a city where more than half the people are dependent upon the government for their existence. They don't make money, they don't produce, they don't contribute to economic prosperity. If you were to stop the giveaways, that crowd would leave. the value of the real estate would come down. People would come in, would buy the real estate, would build companies that earn money, that employ people, that produce, and you'd have a fine city there. But it's not going to happen overnight, and it can only happen when the government stops giving things away.
Yeah, well, and stops getting in the way of people actually purchasing and developing things at fair market prices. Because one of the things that is the problem, as you have identified, is that they do not have the ability or the freedom to actually build or to destroy without having to go through the city council, which is they don't get. It's like a mafia, essentially. It's like Newark, New Jersey back in the 50s and 60s. You just don't get to build something if the mafia doesn't get a take, right? The local Cosa Nostra has got to have a taste of whatever's going on, or it doesn't get built. So I don't know how to break up the mafia and while adhering to libertarian principles. I know that if I lived in Baltimore, for example, and if I was about to get stabbed, if it was a federal troop or a local troop, I don't know if I would really care. And that's probably how most people are, because we are so ivory tower who've read all of the tomes and theories. I think that we're sort of missing the Milton Friedman of the modern liberty movement, who bridges the gap between us Austrian radicals and the boots on the ground policies. Milton Friedman made a lot of mistakes, things like withholding, et cetera, but he also did a lot of good. So it's kind of like we're a little bit sort of lost in the sea from the Tea Party days when you sat with Sarah Palin and Ron Paul on Rand Paul in the same set, and the Republican Party was moving in our direction. And now we seem to have spiraled out of control. But it seems like it's more than just Trump. The American people seem to long for a king. It's like that book in the Bible, Judges. The Israelites cried out for a king. The American people seem to be crying out for a king, don't they, Judge?
I don't think the American people are crying out for a king, but I think it's human nature, as you just articulated. If you're about to be stabbed, you don't care if the person that saves you is wearing a blue uniform or green fatigues. Human nature opts for safety over liberty, but opting for safety over liberty destroys liberty, and you don't get it back. Many arrests in Los Angeles when there were 7,000 troops there cannot be prosecuted, because these people had not been trained in arrests. They had not been trained in the Fourth Amendment. They had not been trained in the preservation of evidence. They had not even been trained as to what's a crime and what's not a crime. And they arrested people for crimes that didn't exist. They arrested people for resisting arrest. There's got to be a basis for the arrest before they can arrest you for resisting arrest.
Judge, I know your time is valuable and I don't want to waste it. I want people to know what's coming up on your show, Judging Freedom, as well as if you can, if you have time to preview your column. I know you have to run, so please tell us who you have coming up on your excellent show, Judging Freedom, and give us a little sneak preview.
I have Aaron Mate on British MI6 agents embedding themselves into media organizations. I have Max Blumenthal, who interviewed a doctor eyewitness to the attacks on the Gazan hospital that killed patients, physicians, and journalists. I have Karen Kwiatkowski, a regular writer for our friend LouRockwell.com and for JudgeNap.com, on hunger as a weapon of war. And I have Phil Giraldi on what you and I have been talking about, Donald Trump thinking he can get away with everything. I must run because of another assignment.
I know, you got to go.
Pleasure, Austin.
Thank you, Judge. Sorry to use so much of your valuable time. You have a wonderful day.
You too. All the best.
Thank you very much. That's Judge Andrew Napolitano, host of Judging Freedom. You can find him on Newsmax as well. The Judge Andrew Napolitano comes and joins us on this show every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Central Time. That's Monday through Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. Central Time is the regular show schedule. However, we are going to we always have the judge on Wednesdays at 7 a.m. Central here on the Wake Up America show. We call it Big Brain Time, but we've got more Big Brain Time coming because we have got Phil Magness is going to be joining us. He's an economic historian here at 8:30 a.m. So if you guys really enjoy big brain conversations, that is the biggest of big brain topics. I'm going to talk about the war in the Republican Party between conservatives, libertarians, and the post-liberal right. That's going to be a great conversation with economic historian Phil Magness, again, joining us live in about 7 minutes here.
Today in California ruled that your deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles was illegal. Do you have any response?
Well, it was a radical left judge, but very importantly, what did you not tell me in that question or statement that you made pretty much of a statement, I think?
Well, I was asking for the response.
No, you didn't say what the judge said, though. The judge said, but you can leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can continue to be in place. That's all we need. But why didn't you put that as part of your statement? Because the same judge ruled exactly as you said, except the judge said that you could leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can stay, they can remain, they can do what they have to do.
What did he say? What the hell? Oh my God, no way. Welcome to the Wake Up America show, guys. I'm Austin Petersen. They call me AP for Liberty because that's what I am. I'm for liberty. And have you checked out the Liberty Shop? We have a pillow in the shape of a nuclear bomb. And as Robbie informed me, this is one dropped on Nagasaki, not Hiroshima. Oops. Dun, 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 dun. Wow. Did my own sound effects. You can get this as part of the Pulos collection over at the Liberty Shop, forlibertyshop.com. The number 4, libertyshop.com. And if somebody buys just one Pulo over at the shop this morning, that will unlock phase 2 of the bonus content, and we will be visited by someone who is out of this world. If you guys want to see a little breakfast theater this morning, a little action this morning from outer space, then keep those Rumble Rant donations coming in. Looks like we've raised $77 towards the $100 goal. That's amazing. I thought it was more. Oh, it is more. It's 87. Excuse me. $87 raised towards the phase 1, phase 2 bonus content. So if you guys want to see a little breakfast theater this morning and have a visit from outer space, then head over to forlibertyshop.com, the number 4libertyshop.com, make a purchase there, or you can do Rumble Rants. Just $20 or less will unlock that bonus content phase 2, and you can see that after Phil Magness, who is coming up next on the Wake Up America show. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Talk about the economic history of the 20th, and I guess we're starting to see some history now from the 21st century. So we'll be right back. It's the Wake Up America show on the 4 Liberty Network.
Alaska man is petitioning the Supreme Court to consider whether the government's seizure of his $95,000 plane for transporting an illicit 6-pack of beer is an excessive fine under the 8th Amendment. The Institute for Justice, a public interest law firm, filed a petition for writ of certiorari today on behalf of Ken Juppy, an 82-year-old Alaskan bush pilot, asking the Supreme Court to rule on whether states should consider the gravity of a defendant's specific offense rather than an abstract view of the general crime. Juppy was convicted of a misdemeanor in 2012 when state troopers searched his plane before takeoff and discovered that a passenger was attempting to bring several cases of beer to a dry village where alcohol is prohibited. Juppy was only culpable for a single 6-pack of Budweiser that troopers said was in plain sight, but the state wasn't through with Juppy. For the past 13 years, prosecutors have sought to seize his Cessna U-206D through asset forfeiture, a process which allows police and prosecutors to seize property connected to criminal activity. The Institute for Justice says the case of Juppy's Cessna is a perfect example of why the 8th Amendment exists. The excessive fines clause of the Constitution was built for cases like this, Sam Gedge, a senior attorney at the Institute for Justice, said in a press release. As government agencies increasingly exploit fines and forfeitures to pad their budgets, it's vital that the Supreme Court make clear that the excessive fines clause is a meaningful check on government overreach. And it's a chance for the Institute for Justice to build on its previous Supreme Court victory regarding excessive fines and fees. In 2019, the Supreme Court ruled in response to an Institute for Justice lawsuit that the 8th Amendment's prohibition on excessive fines and fees applies to states under the incorporation doctrine. In the underlying case, Indiana police had seized a Land Rover from a man named Tyson Timms for a minor drug crime. But while the Supreme Court ruled that states are bound by the Eighth Amendment, the justices left it up to state courts to determine what constitutes an excessive fine. Many states adopted proportionality tests that involve some analysis of personal culpability. In 2021, for example, the Indiana Supreme Court rejected prosecutors' arguments that there should be no proportionality limit on seizures in drug cases like Tim's, and it ordered Tim's car to be returned to him after 8 years in legal limbo. However, other courts, such as the Alaska Supreme Court and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, have focused instead on the maximum penalties for worst-case offenders and more abstract social ills that the criminal statutes in question sought to address. Under that rubric, the Alaska Supreme Court ruled this April that the forfeiture of Jupi's plane was not excessive. Alcohol abuse in rural Alaska leads to increased crime, disorders such as alcoholism, conditions such as fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and death, imposing substantial costs on public health and the administration of justice. Within this context, it is clear that the illegal importation of even a six-pack of beer causes grave societal harm, the ruling states. This factor strongly suggests that the forfeiture is not grossly disproportional. The Institute for Justice argues in its petition that this interpretation flies in the face of the historical understanding of the excessive fines clause, and that the question of proportionality implicates the Constitution's most textually explicit check on extravagant economic sanctions, including both civil and criminal forfeitures. This case isn't just about me or my airplane anymore, Jupi said in an Institute for Justice press release. I'm in my 80s now, and I've been fighting this for over a decade because I see it as my duty to ensure that the Bill of Rights actually means something in protecting against government overreach.
You're starting to see in the mainstream media, whether it's the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, that even the other side or the super free market people are getting addicted to tariff income. I've been saying $300 billion, but I think it could be much higher. Every $300 billion is 1% of GDP. We got left with a mess in terms of the deficit to GDP, the highest ever when we weren't in a recession, we're in at war. So just with the tariff income, we're going to be in the fives, which is incredible. Like that's like running a marathon and starting 5 miles before everybody else.
That's supposed to be the smartest guy in the Trump administration. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show on the For Liberty Network, which means, for liberty. We're not big fans of the taxes. And tariffs raise costs. If you've gone to Walmart or Target lately, have you noticed that they stopped putting price stickers on them? Yeah, viral TikToks showing people who work at the shops saying their bosses are having them rip these stickers off of the products as soon as they can. Customers are like, how much does this cost? Well, it costs a lot more than it used to. Joining us now to discuss the war on liberty and the battle in the Republican Party between what is known as the post-liberal right against the economic libertarians. Like my next guest, his name is Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil Magness joining us live. Did you guys want that other Dr. Phil? Don't be mad. Dr. Phil Magness is even better. He's an economic historian with the Independent Institute. He's joining us live here on the Wake Up America show for the first time. Good morning, Dr. Phil. Nice to see you. Here. So tariff revenue, Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, says even free market guys are getting addicted to the money that's coming in from the tariff revenues. Do you know any, Dr. Phil?
I do not know any, and I'm pretty well versed in the free market economics scene, but I've yet to find even one single example of someone who's endorsing this tax hike. But it is coming from other parts of the Republican Party, which does kind of horrify me, the fact that they are celebrating what is arguably the largest peacetime tax hike in American history, and it's one that was imposed by executive decree rather than any legislation.
Yeah, it's a shame. Joni Rankin over in the chat, she says, your question, Austin, your question about kings and people's nature to crave kings is great Aristotle stuff. Politics has been on my mind recently. I get it, Joni. We don't need a king in this country, and we certainly don't need anyone unilaterally raising tariffs in our country. But there is an ideological underpinning to tariffs. There's no economic underpinning for tariffs, Dr. Phil, but there is an ideological underpinning for tariffs. What is the ideology behind people who seek to drive the prices of the goods and services that you and I buy every day, as every American does every day, to drive them higher? What is that philosophy, and what does it stand for?
Right. Well, there's an undercurrent that's playing out in parts of the Republican Party and on the right at the current moment. It's called postliberalism. And this is a philosophical movement that started mostly among very traditionalist religious people, Catholics in particular, in the last 15 to 20 years. And essentially what they do is they merge an extremely conservative social outlook, almost theocratic in some respects, with Elizabeth Warren's economic agenda. So a very far left-wing interventionist economic agenda, although unlike Warren, who sees this as like the next step to progressivism, they see this as a step to ordering society around a very socially conservative structure premised in the family and the church, but augmenting it with a massive top-down interventionist state that embraces tariff protectionism to direct the economy. They also like antitrust and industrial policy and higher taxes, a more rigorous social safety net. So it's essentially a left-wing economic agenda adapted in a very right-wing direction.
Well, where did this come from? Because it seemed like, 2010, 2012, we're talking about the Tea Party years. Economic libertarianism seemed to be ascendant. People were all moving in our direction. And then something changed. What changed?
Well, the post-liberal movement emerged as this intellectual force, and they really kind of appropriated the cause. Like most economic interventionists, they're really bad at interpreting economic history. So they seized on the financial crisis in 2008 and somehow blamed that on free markets. So it's very much like the modern monetary people on the left seized on some of these same events in the Biden years and tried to steer us in a direction of just profligate spending. Well, the post-liberals did the same, and they crafted this narrative that the reason that the Republican Party was losing to Obama, the reason the Republican Party had gone astray, was the fact that it had been captured in previous decades by free market, fundamentalist, neoliberal, economic libertarians, essentially. And they declared war on them. You read some of their writings around the late 2000s, early 2010s, and these are figures like Patrick Deneen. It's economic libertarians are the source of all evil in the world. It's like the weather was bad, and it's damn you libertarians for causing it. And I mean that quite literally. This was a guy that was into peak oil theory, if you remember that, the radical environmental movement. And he had this crazy theory that peak oil proved that economic libertarianism and free markets were wrong, that they were an unnatural perversion that exploited resources in ways that we were going to run out of oil, and therefore our age of abundance, our prosperity that we enjoyed in the 2000s and 2010s was like this false imposition created by exploiting Mother Nature.
So today's tariff supporters are yesterday's peak oil freakers. Great.
Absolutely.
Voodoo
and
economics.
They have no economics behind any of this. I mean, the peak oil theory was essentially discarded by the environmental left when it never panned out. Just the same way, rather than building an economic theory of why tariffs are supposed to work, they go dig deep into the past and they pull up these crackpot theories from the 19th century that are almost like conspiracy theories. They claim that free trade is this British imposition from Adam Smith and David Ricardo that was brought in to make America subservient to the British Empire. This is like a conspiracy theory that was popular among nativists in the 1850s. And they pretend as if this is like a lost economic legacy of the United States that only they have recovered. And then they've merged it with religious social theocracy and put it forth as like it's the new rights platform for the American public. And unfortunately, they've gotten a lot of currency because we also happen to have a vice president of the United States, J.D. Vance, who's a personal mentee of Patrick Deneen, the leading figure of the post-liberal movement, calls himself a post-liberal, came into office, built his political career ranting and raving against free trade on how it was supposedly the source of all of America's economic problems, had hollowed out industry. And therefore we need tariffs and this extreme social conservatism to set the order right.
We've got Dr. Phil on the show this morning. He's an economic historian from the Independent Institute, great liberty institution. Been around for a long time. They always do a lot of great work for our country. And I'm speaking to Dr. Phil Magness today about what he calls the war on post-liberalism that he did not declare, because the post-liberals have declared war on us, and on economics. So what is the core of this conflict, would you say, in plain English, Doctor? If you were speaking to, explain it to me like I'm 5, Michael Scott from The Office. Help me to understand just the core of this and why this matters to the people who are about to eat bacon and eggs and coffee with their breakfast and their families this morning.
Well, the core of it is they're drawing on bad economic theories that are going to impose higher prices on us, going to impose higher taxes on us. The post-liberals decided that economic libertarians were the enemy, the evil. They needed to be purged from the right. And this is something, if you go back to the mid-20th century, a very fragile but nonetheless existent coalition emerged between economic free marketeers, conservative traditionalists, and then in some cases the military hawks. But it's like the old Ronald Reagan coalition. And what it meant is that economic libertarians, even though they weren't always calling the shots, they enjoyed a home generally in the political right. And it meant that the Republican Party at least nominally committed itself to lower taxes, that they pay lip service to cutting government spending. They didn't always do it, but at least there was a seat at the table in that conversation. And the post-liberals decided, well, this is what had caused the right to go astray. We need to get rid of the economic libertarians. So about 10 or 15 years ago, you have people like Deneen, they just declare that the economic libertarians no longer belong in the conservative movement. We are going to seek to purge them. And he uses this type of language. What do? They purge them, and they create a vacuum to bring in other figures on the right, including factions that people like William F. Buckley 50 or 60 years ago had excluded intentionally, had purged from the right. In other words, I mean racists and anti-Semites and these conspiracy crackpots. Buckley pushed out of the conservative movement in the 1960s and 70s. Well, Deneen's opened the door back.
You're talking about the people who do the Elon Musk wave, but they do it serious.
They are a bit more serious.
But they're a bit more serious about the Elon Musk wave. It's the...
Exactly. It's actually a very frightening phenomenon.
The thing that offends me the most about these people is that their project deliberately collides with the American founding, right?
Absolutely.
Because the American founding leads towards limited government and individual rights. How does post-liberal theory conflict with the principles of the American founding?
Well, post-liberals, if you dig deep into their philosophy, they absolutely hate John Locke. And they hate that derivative of the English political tradition that comes out of Locke. And what do we know? Well, John Locke is the basis for the Declaration of Independence. So there's a straight line in that strain of philosophical thinking that informs the Founding Fathers. And they hate John Locke because they see him as irredeemably individualist. They see him as a proto-libertarian. And if you read some of the post-liberal philosophical tracts, they write these entire books, and it's Deneen, it's Adrian Vermeule, it's some of these like Gladden Papin, and these characters on the post-liberal right. And they essentially write that the American founding is irredeemably tainted by individualism that turns society against its true order, which is communitarian and based in the family and based in the church. So they want to import an alternative conservative tradition that resembles something more like Central European conservatism. You notice all these guys, they love the Viktor Orban regime in Hungary. They view that as like the true conservative state, whereas the American founding is irredeemably libertarian. The Founding Fathers were Enlightenment thinkers. They were committed to these ideas of figures like John Locke that went astray from the true order of nature.
So traitors, essentially.
essentially.
So if we applied their own rules to them, we would denaturalize them and deport them to the UK, where they belong, I guess, Dr. Phil.
Well, that's one of the ironies of it. You know, they're smart enough to know not to declare this in front of public audiences, even among like protectionist NatCon types. They know if they go up on stage and say, I want to burn down the Declaration of Independence and tear up the Constitution, they'd get booed off the stage.
Yes, rightfully so. But they have to use veiled language, and they have to say it in their podcast.
Exactly.
in veiled tweets that have like subtext in them so that people won't call them traitors and suggest that we denaturalize and deport them. And perhaps maybe we need to go get some tiki torches ourselves and stand outside their buildings.
It's the wild thing about it. So yeah, they're speaking in code, and I call these guys, they're too clever by half. When they're in post-liberal audiences or writing in these obscure little house journals that they run, it's all snickers and sneers about the American founding being tainted. And yet when they go before public audiences like the NatCon conference, they pretend as though, that this is part of the American tradition. So there is an intentional
It's certainly not, especially with the Catholic integralism. If there's one thing that the founders didn't want, it's Catholics running anything in this country.
Well,
if we want to be really traditional, no Catholics allowed.
Well, this is the thing. The First Amendment, the protection of the freedom of religion, gets in the way of their model conception of the state. I'd also argue that, the Catholic Church itself, the Pope, is not an integralist. So they're living in like this almost a deluded fantasy land that views this own little personal strain of theology as if it's something that could be implemented, and yet they don't have a Pope that's willing to implement it because the Catholic Church has also rejected this line of thinking.
It is interesting, but that's not the best argument, Dr. Phil, because the Pope these days tends to go from commie to commie. It's not like Pope. It's not like Pope John Paul II. We're not living back in the Reagan days. They hated the Reagan days. I'm surprised that they don't talk smack about John Paul II. To be quite honest, he was a very strong anti-communist.
He's a strong anti-communist, and he writes encyclicals that are very friendly to free markets. He views that as the antithesis of communism. So. It's a very strange outlook these post-liberals have adopted. Doesn't seem to be at home in the Catholic Church, even though they claim to represent it. It's certainly not at home in the American political tradition, where it does have a home. When you notice all these post-liberals move over and they get patronage jobs from the government of Hungary under Viktor Orban. They have all these institutions that are set up over there to promote post-liberalism. And you look at Orban's economic policy, it's not free market. It is price controls to stop greedflation. It is radical COVID lockdowns. It is variations on modern monetary theory. It's state industrial policy, stuff like that. And they see that as the vision, the future that should be imported into America. And, as an economic free market person, I'm horrified by this.
Yeah, well, I certainly am as well, especially because it seemed for so long there that the Republican Party was on a path towards our ideas. The Tea Party years, there was a talk of a libertarian moment, and it seemed to all fall apart right around 2016. And it's a shame to see it. You kind of compared the trend that we're seeing on the right to what happened on the left when it stopped tolerating dissent. What signs should our listeners watch for that the right is heading down the same path that the left is?
Well, you see some of the rhetoric that's emerged around the tariff cases, and Trump just lost a major case in the Federal Court of Appeals. They struck down most of his tariff agenda, and there's this real pressure on parts of the right to just denounce the courts, denounce the entire legitimacy of the courts, basically claiming that they don't even have proper oversight of a law passed under the Constitution. Which, I view that as absolutely absurd. It's a violation of basic core constitutional tenets. And yet there's this pressure to conform, to not criticize the Trump tariff agenda, even if we know it's economically absurd and backward in the way that it's being implemented. And I don't entirely blame Trump for this. Trump is a different type of protectionist. I don't think he's a post-liberal. He's certainly not an integralist, but post-liberal integralists have surrounded him and latched onto his agenda, and they flatter his personal ideological inclination toward tariffs by saying, we're going to provide an intellectual framework that props this up, and that's how they worm their way into the public dialogue around it. So it's very strange because they're post-liberals themselves. I mean, it's like a couple dozen very obscure intellectuals, failed academics, writing in journals that nobody reads, and yet they're advising the Vice President of the United States, and they've shifted the narrative around the president's economic agenda.
Yeah, this is great stuff, Dr. Phil, and the audience seems to be liking it because I'm seeing that they're clipping your little monologues and rants. People in the chat over there, like T-Mill22, she just dropped a 45-second clip of what you've been saying there. I think people are really interested in spreading the message. And I want to remind our listeners that if they do share clips from the show today, that both Dr. Phil and myself on X will repost them if you tag us. Just make sure that you tag us. I think yours is Phil W. Magness over on X. And of course, they know me, AP for Liberty. So tag us both if you drop a clip over on X, and we will help to boost your account to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty, which is what the Wake Up America show is all about. Gosh darn it. Dr. Phil, we're running out of time. I want to make sure that we covered everything, though. You've been on a tear. It's been fun. It's been fun to watch your posts. So I hope that people do follow you over on X. I did retweet your account a couple of times. Is there anything about this story, any other words of caution, anything else that you think we missed that you'd like to share with your audience? And this is also your opportunity. If you'd like to plug something, please feel free.
Well, the main thing I'd emphasize, I'm an economic historian by background who specialized in 19th century tariffs. I wrote a dissertation on that. I never dreamed that this would be, in 2025, the national topic of economic policy, is revisiting 19th century tariffs. But there's an interesting element to this, and it's that actual economists, people who study these issues, people who know what they're talking about in trade, have almost entirely been excluded from this discussion around shaping national economic policy. You look in the Trump White House, there are very, very few economists, and those that are, they're people like Peter Navarro, who also uses a fake pseudonym, Ron Vera, to reaffirm his own work. So it's a very fringe segment of the economic profession is shaping national economic policy. And I liken this to, as you alluded, the left went off the rails in the early 2010s and started driving out dissent. Well, that happened in the economic realm as well. I contrast the Obama years. They actually had mainstream center-left economists advising them. And this is why we didn't drive completely off the rails in the response to the financial crisis. But by the time Joe Biden came along, those center-left economists had all been pushed out. And instead you had modern monetary theory people and greedflation theory driving national responses to an inflationary crisis. And we know how that ended. It ended in economic catastrophe in the Biden years. So we've seen the left go down this route. I see the right doing the exact same thing. They're driving away the economists. They're driving away people that actually know what they're talking about on these issues. And they're importing cranks and crackpots and regurgitators of 19th century protectionism under the guise of post-liberal integralism and saying that this is like a lost economic tradition that they're recovering, but really, it's heading us right off the cliff economically. These are recipes for how you get recessions and depressions in the future if you start listening to these guys and let them direct national economic policy. So I'm here sounding the alarm, saying, no, actually, let's restore some sanity to the discussion, bring the economists back in, look at some of the lessons of history, look at Smoot-Hawley in 1930 that caused the Great Depression to become great. We've been down this route before. We've tried these policies. They fail every single time, and that's not going to change if we try to do them again.
Damn, Dr. Phil is bitching. You're the man, Dr. Phil.
Appreciate it.
Economic historian. It's the kind of thing I nerd out about. So Dr. Phil is a great follow over on X. You better follow him at Phil W. Magness. Little bit of trivia there. My mother's maiden name is Magness, so we might even be related. Magness means the greatest and best, the highest. And my name, Austin, comes from Augustine, August, so August Magnus means I'm the greatest and bestest times two. Dr. Phil,
there you go.
Hey, we appreciate all that you're doing. Hey, how's that for economics? Dr. Phil, we appreciate all you do for our country and for the cause of liberty. Keep fighting them out there, and we'll keep sending you the ammunition to fight them out there on the front in the war against liberty. It's nice that we have a few warriors out there, Dr. Phil. Keep it up and come back and join us again real soon, will you?
Absolutely.
Have a great day. That's Dr. Phil W. Magness there. That was a great conversation. I hope he comes back and joins us soon. Have you guys unlocked the bonus content? Oh, you have you? Oh, you have you? Well, guess what? That means that it's time for a spooky alien encounter. Oh, that's not it. Hey, Mr. President, I tried to hit the alien button there. We're going to the alien segment. It's time for Breakfast Theater, guys. This is the daily bonus segment for those of you who fuel your show with your financial support. Today, we've got something out of this world. See, humans used to fill the dark with monsters and spirits. Think Monster Squad. There were demons in the woods, gods in the clouds. And if you do not listen, Crom, then to hell with you. But over time, science kind of pushed those figures out of the forests, out of the skies, right? But we didn't get rid of them completely. We just launched them into outer space, right? And this is how we ended up with The Martian, Ming the Merciless, War of the Worlds, and yes, even little squishy E.T. Over the last century, aliens have become a mirror for ourselves. They reflect our humanity. Sometimes they're terrifying invaders. Sound familiar? Sometimes they're benevolent overlords. Sound familiar? And sometimes they're just big-eyed therapists who are here to help us talk about our feelings. But what if, and this is today's big question, what if the only reason that we invented these space beings is because we couldn't bear the thought of being alone in the universe? What if aliens are really just our way of projecting human hopes and fears onto the stars? Well, apparently we're about to find out, guys, because an extraterrestrial visitor has just arrived on the Wake Up America show. He has some thoughts about how you Earthlings imagine his kind to be. So, ladies and gentlemen, brace yourselves after the jump for a special guest from the galaxies beyond. We shall be right back.
Greetings, humans. I have traveled across the galaxies only to arrive here in your Walmart parking lot. And I must tell you, this is scarier than anything in War of the Worlds. You Earthlings once imagined us aliens as monsters. Slimy tentacles, beady eyes, giant teeth. Very flattering, thank you. Then came the 20th century, your movies of Martians and Ming the Merciless, conquerors who looked suspiciously like your worst dictators. You needed villains, so you made us villains. But then came E.T., and suddenly we were cute, squishy, riding bicycles in the sky. You no longer feared us. You wanted to hug us. A mistake, I assure you. We smell like the garbage in that can over there. It's gross. That's our pheromones. It's for mating. I'm in my season. Don't judge. Your storytellers gave us 3 faces, 3 archetypes. The monster from the shadows, the robot overlord pretending to be benevolent, and the cuddly therapist here to talk about your feelings. Do you know what none of those versions have? Truth. Because truth, dear Earthlings, is that you project your own problems into the stars. You cannot solve Chicago, but you dream of Tatooine. You cannot balance your budget, but you fantasize about cosmic civilizations judging you from afar. Some of your scientists, the ones who sound like Kermit the Frog with tenure, we love that show. That's great. We do like Kermit. Now tells you that the universe must be full of advanced civilizations. Why? Because they can't stand the idea that humanity might be alone. They call it the will to believe. I call it cosmic Tinder. You swipe right on aliens because you're lonely. And yet, your politicians already claim to know us. The director of national intelligence says she believes in Greys, Nordics, insectoids, and reptilians. Fine. But if the reptilians are real, could someone explain Congress to me, because that lizard behavior kind of checks out? Let's be honest. Your evidence is swamp gas, TikTok lights in the sky, and some guy in Venice seeing twirling colors after a little bit too much LSD. Centuries ago, you would have built a cathedral on that spot. Today, you build a subreddit. And still, you want desperately to believe. Because if aliens are out there, maybe your lives matter more than they do right now. Maybe your petty squabbles and your reality shows are secretly being live streamed to Alpha Centauri. Maybe Taylor Swift is the ambassador of your species. But listen closely. If contact ever comes, it will not be the therapy session of arrival. It will not be the bicycle ride of E.T. It will be the cantina on Tatooine. Rough, seedy, full of danger and possibility. The Wild West, not Whole Foods, although sometimes it does get pretty sketch. More like this Walmart parking lot. Here is the moral, humans. If you want to meet us aliens, fine. But don't expect us to fix your problems. You created them. You live with them. Out here, in the absence of space, there are no price tags to rip off. Just survival. And perhaps one day, a seat at the table in the great interstellar saloon. Until then, dream big. But maybe, just maybe, fix Baltimore first.
Wow, that was good. Thank you, Mr. Spaceman. I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Did you guys like Dr. Phil? The Wake Up America show is brought to you in part by viewers and listeners just like you. Thank you to everyone who donated today to unlock the bonus content so that we could be visited by Martians. Think about what it takes to bring that bonus content to you every single day. I hope it's worth it. I think $100 is a bargain each day. But if you still feel like getting involved, guys, why don't you head over to the Liberty Shop before you go today and grab yourself a box of Founding Flavors coffee. You will not regret this coffee. You will love this coffee. I'm not playing a Jedi mind trick on you right now. I'm telling you that if you have not tasted this coffee, you're missing out. It's delicious. The top three, in my mind, Jeffersonian Java, Thomas's Painkiller, and Franklin's Electric Elixir. If you need something that's kind of like, it's not flavored coffee, right, guys? It's just different flavors because of different beans. In my opinion, the Franklin's Electric Elixir has the kind of sweetest sort of taste to some extent. Again, it's all coffee beans, but in terms of the flavor, if you like a little bit of a sweeter bean, then the Franklin's Electric Elixir is going to be your top choice. So hope that you guys enjoy that. Looks like we scared people off with the alien over there, but maybe they just got jobs and they got to go. That's my signal to leave. Grab a nuclear weapon while you guys are at the shop. Just don't drop it on any Japanese cities, and we'll see you guys right back again here tomorrow. If you guys cut clips from the show, don't forget, tag me, AP for Liberty guys, here on X today, and I will repost your tags, tag videos. We'll be back tomorrow, Thursday, on the Wake Up America shows for Liberty Network.
An Alaska man is petitioning the Supreme Court to consider whether the government's seizure of his $95,000 plane for transporting an illicit six-pack of beer is an excessive fine under the Eighth Amendment. The Institute for Justice, a public interest law firm, filed a petition for writ of certiorari today on behalf of Ken Juppy, an 82-year-old Alaskan bush pilot, asking the Supreme Court to rule on whether states should consider the gravity of a defendant's specific offense rather than an abstract view of the general crime. Juppy was convicted of a misdemeanor in 2012 when state troopers searched his plane before takeoff and discovered that a passenger was attempting to bring several cases of beer to a dry village where alcohol is prohibited. Juppy was only culpable for a single six-pack of Budweiser that troopers said was in plain sight. But the state wasn't through with Juppy. For the past 13 years, prosecutors have sought to seize his Cessna U-206D through asset forfeiture, a process which allows police and prosecutors to seize property connected to criminal activity. The Institute for Justice says the case of Juppy's Cessna is a perfect example of why the Eighth Amendment exists. The excessive fines clause of the Constitution was built for cases like this, Sam Gedge, a senior attorney at the Institute for Justice, said in a press release. As government agencies increasingly exploit fines and forfeitures to pad their budgets, it's vital that the Supreme Court make clear that the excessive fines clause is a meaningful check on government overreach. And it's a chance for the Institute for Justice to build on its previous Supreme Court victory regarding excessive fines and fees. In 2019, the Supreme Court ruled in response to an Institute for Justice lawsuit that the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on excessive fines and fees applies to states under the incorporation doctrine. In the underlying case, Indiana police had seized a Land Rover from a man named Tyson Timms for a minor drug crime. But while the Supreme Court ruled that states are bound by the Eighth Amendment, the justices left it up to state courts to determine what constitutes an excessive fine. Many states adopted proportionality tests that involve some analysis of personal culpability. In 2021, for example, the Indiana Supreme Court rejected prosecutors' arguments that there should be no proportionality limit on seizures in drug cases like Tim's, and it ordered Tim's car to be returned to him after 8 years in legal limbo. However, other courts, such as the Alaska Supreme Court and the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit, have focused instead on the maximum penalties for worst-case offenders and more abstract social ills that the criminal statutes in question sought to address. Under that rubric, the Alaska Supreme Court ruled this April that the forfeiture of Juppy's plane was not excessive. Alcohol abuse in rural Alaska leads to increased crime, disorders such as alcoholism, conditions such as fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and death, imposing substantial costs on public health and the administration of justice. Within this context, it is clear that the illegal importation of even a six-pack of beer causes grave societal harm, the ruling states. This factor strongly suggests that the forfeiture is not grossly disproportional. The Institute for Justice argues in its petition that this interpretation flies in the face of the historical understanding of the excessive fines clause, and that the question of proportionality implicates the Constitution's most textually explicit check on extravagant economic sanctions, including both civil and criminal forfeitures. This case isn't just about me or my airplane anymore, Juppy said in an Institute for Justice press release. I'm in my 80s now, and I've been fighting this for over a decade because I see it as my duty to ensure that the Bill of Rights actually means something in protecting against government overreach.